Welcome. This is Pastor Errol Williams here for another daily Bible studies. And tonight we are looking at men and their emotion. This is our live broadcast in that area. And I have three amazing guests with me tonight, Bishop Ray Vieira, and also the man I call the incredible Earl Lynch, and also Minister Rob Clark. And together, the four of us will form a panel, and we will begin to discuss about things pertaining to men's emotions. We will talk about ourselves, maybe personally, share some thoughts around those areas, as well as get questions and comments from yourself. So please go ahead, put those in the chat room. If you'd like to call in, we can actually call you in. We can also bring your video right into the studio as well. So if you want to do that, we can do that as well. So put your questions or comments in the chat room, either at YouTube or Facebook. If you're on the website, cogop.com, you're only able to watch, but you have to come into Facebook or YouTube in order to leave a comment. So Earl Lynch, Rob Clark, myself, and Bishop Ray will be able to answer any questions or comments that you may have. Before we get started, I want to obviously remind you about our event Sunday evening service. This has truly been phenomenal, the few weeks that we've been having it. We've had our general overseer, we've had presbyters from within the Church of God of Prophecy, and this week we have Pastor Andonia Toussaint. And what I love about our Sunday evening is the youth focus. The youth have truly been truly amazing. Our our corporate director is Sister Leanne Jacobs, and she is in charge of that. So this Sunday, the focus will be from the Region 4 area, and Sister Rachel McCoy will be leading that focus. So we look forward to that with great excitement. Now, just to let you know as well, if you want to actually participate tonight, then there is a phone call that you can call us on. It's 0203-289-4567. I believe it's set up, so if it rings in my ear, and then I'll be able to actually answer your call, and the panel will be able to hear that as well. Okay, so everyone will hear that. It will go across the network as well. So take that number down if you don't mind, and participate tonight. We want to hear from you. We don't just want to have a discussion in the studios here. We want to hear from you because your comments are very important to us. Now, what I loved about last week, and we will be introducing Bishop Ray. He's going to share some moments with us. But last week, I was so excited, in fact, with the presentation that was made, that I thought to myself, I laughed, I smiled, because it truly was a short presentation, but it was one of the most powerful presentations I'd heard in a long time. And this was done by the incredible Earl Lynch. And Men and Their Emotion, one of the 10 commandments of masculinity is, thou shalt not feel, or thou shalt not cry. That's an interesting particular statement that we looked at last week. So that's truly amazing. And it talks about boys regularly hear this, big boys don't cry. Pull yourself together, boy. And so on. So these are some of the comments that we as men grow up with. We grow up with these comments, and we have to live with them and try to live up to them, if you like, because it's seen that, this is the way we ought to be, and so on. And Men and their emotions, certain points, but Earl made last week. Men solve emotional problems on their own, and that's so very true. And we wouldn't say all men do that, but it's just maybe the majority of men that would do that as well. Now, we are part of the National Men's Ministry Department of the Church of God of Prophecy, and we have a specific goal in mind that we've had for the last 10 years. And what it is basically is developing better men, fathers, husbands, and leaders. So that's our focus. That's our goal. That's our intention within the Church of God of Prophecy, and also outside of the Church of God of Prophecy. Our intention basically is to develop better men. I want to be a better man, a better father, a better husband, a better leader. And those have been the focus. And then there are many different things that come within that. And one of them is men and their emotions. And so that's been our topic last week. And that's our focus this week as well. So without further ado then, I'm going to hand you over to Bishop Raymond Vieira. He's a powerful minister of the Word of God. He is based in Bristol and is married. He's got children. He's been in the ministry a long, long time, long time. Well, that's a long time. I don't know. Is it 50 years? Maybe 40 years? He will tell us. He will tell us because I don't want to make him older than he really is. Because if his wife is listening, please don't tell her. But if she's listening, I could be in trouble already, right? So I don't want to be in trouble with his wife. I mean, she wouldn't, you know, beat me up that badly, I don't think. But we are honored to have him tonight to share with us. And then after he finished sharing with us, then we will actually go on to have the discussion among ourselves. So let me hand you over right now to Bishop Raymond Vieira.
Good evening, and thank you, Pastor Errol, for inviting me to share this evening, and along with my colleagues, Earl and Rob. I forgot your name there, Rob. And we just want to go in prayer right now, and we'll have a discussion around men and their emotions. So if we just bow our heads and we just have a word of prayer, give thanks unto God for his mercies. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we just thank you, Lord, for the gift of your eternal love towards us. And we pray in Jesus' name that your Spirit will continue to guide us this evening. I pray, Lord, for an outpouring of your blessings, that everyone that is connected to this platform shall be blessed, and our discussion shall be meaningful. But most of all, you shall be exalted in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, it's been placed upon me to open up this evening and talking about men's emotions. One of the things I want to address is that men do show emotions. There's no doubt in my mind that we are emotional beings. However, the problem that we face is that society has labeled us, and from a young age, we're told that we shouldn't cry, we shouldn't back down, and we must stand our ground at all cost. And so, therefore, we have um, this teaching that's come from a youth right through. If you're on the streets, you know, you ever walk down the road and somebody's eyeballing you, and you've got to eyeball them back because the moment you move your eyes, that's a sign of weakness. And so, therefore, it's a very competitive environment. Men are taught to be aggressive in their nature. We're taught to be competitive because losers are not accepted. Only winners get the prize. And so, today, as men, we need to explore how to um, be, show positive emotions, how to relate to other people, especially our families, our spouse. How do we relate to them in terms of our masculinity, our emotions? How do we show our emotions without getting upset? Um, Self control, gentleness. How do we display those characteristics as we explore this topic of men and their emotions? We can have a positive or negative emotions. Um, One of the things I want to leave with you in the short time that I have is that I'm a black man, obviously, and as a black man, I have to learn to show my emotions because it has a negative impact on us in terms of our health, our well being, when we are not able to openly display how we're feeling at a given time. It's all right to cry. It's all right to say that I can't do it. It's okay to say, help me. And if we don't do those things, we become isolated, we're not true to ourselves, and we become depressed. So, in my short presentation, let's be honest and let's open up and let's explore these things, um, which might make us feel uncomfortable. But that's okay. That's okay to feel uncomfortable because that's what we're here to do. So, without any further delay, Pastor, I'll hand back to Pastor Errol. But let us look at this topic with a sense of honesty, openness, and let's respect each other's feelings and discussion. Because often why men don't talk as well is because if you say that, I cry often, men and women can sometimes look at you and think, yeah, sissy. And that's not what we're here to do today. We're here to have an open discussion where people can express how they feel. Over to you, Pastor Errol.
Blessings, Bishop, and thank you so much for sharing with us on that, though brief but very powerful. And I'm going to hand over to Rob at this moment. You've heard what the Bishop had to say. You were here last week, and we're talking about men in the mission. I think I love the point Bishop started off by saying that is men do have emotions, and we do show emotions. What's your thoughts?
Wow. So I want to greet everybody, um, first of all. So, Brother Errol, Brother Earl, Bishop, I've forgotten your name.
Raymond.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Greetings all.
Sorry, Rob.
Um,
Sorry.
that's okay. I know how it goes. So how to respond? I thought, as Bishop Ray was saying all of that, I was going, wow, we got a debate tonight, because there's a lot of statements there, and it's really good. I'm just quoting some of that I wrote. Men do show emotions, and Bishop Ray said that quite positively,
That's
and I
right.
thought, really? And then you got who in society. Well, you were saying that society tells us to be aggressive, competitive, and I heard all that, and I'm going, really? Who in society? These are the questions I'm throwing out there for debate.
Mm,
And some of the things, as you say, as somebody walks past, we eyeball one another, and I relate totally to what you're saying. But I think the question for me tonight is, where does all that come from? Because no one's ever come to me directly, although I'm agreeing with Bishop Ray, um, to say any of that.
mm,
So it's about men and their emotions, and I think I probably want to kick off and say it's about how well do we express our emotions. Why do we do
mm,
what we do? Because,
mm,
as I say, I'm agreeing with Bishop. I'm not disagreeing, but as a debate, where does all that come from? Because I was never told that in school. I didn't hear that from my mom and dad. But we've learned some of this stuff. Is it
mm,
some of it cultural? Is it some of it to do with our slavery background? What is it? And trust. We talked about trust last week as well. So there's all these different things that, I'm looking forward to unwrap tonight. So I'm
mm,
going to hold some of my thoughts. I just want to throw it out there, but I heard you, Bishop Ray. But
mm,
my
Okay.
question is, where does all that come from? And I agree again. We must show positive emotions. I'd go on to say we as men need to show more emotions as well, because
mm,
we've all got feelings. Everyone's got
mm.
feelings, but how well do men show their emotions?
Let me just piggyback on that and go back to your Rob and says, for example, all four of us is on the live stream. Aren't we all showing emotions right now?
We are, we are, we are. But do we show these emotions off the camera?
Good point. Good point. I'm
Yeah.
sure Brother
I,
Earl
I,
will answer yes to that. What's your take, Brother Earl? What's your take? And will you be able to answer any of Rob's questions? Who is this society? Where does it come from?
I love it. I love it. I really do. I love these sessions. I think right now we're being deeply respectful towards each other, and we've got the facade up at the
Mm,
moment, and the facade is I'll show you what you need to see without making myself
Deep.
embarrassed. However, we've got to be careful because men cannot be what they cannot see. You can't be what you can't see. So if you want to be a man who is not afraid to show his emotions, often you will need to have known or have seen a man do that before. And we don't often see people do that. I certainly, when I was growing up, didn't see my father show the type of emotions which would show that he's in distress or show that he's emotionally, broken by a situation. He would always show a very strong sense of character. And it's only in the most recent years that we're beginning to see more men open up and display their real emotions. To give an example, one of the nights I was in bed and it was after 12, and Rio Ferdinand was on TV. And he was on a program called um, Being Mum and Dad, I think was the name of the program. And he was describing the relationship with his children. And he was going around the country and various countries talking to men who had lost their wives
mm,
and trying to understand, well, how do you cope with this as a man? What emotional roller coasters did you go through? And it was then that I saw the so called strong, competitive, archetypal guy who's so full of fire for Manchester United actually break down and cry on the TV. But we need to see this because if Rio Ferdinand, captain of Man United and captain of the England team, could be seen crying for the loss of his wife on TV, then maybe that gives me permission to do something similar, or at least my peer group, or maybe my son's age group to do that. So, I think the more we have these open discussions, that facade which I mentioned starts to come down and you begin to see the real person. And that's where we need to be in order to show ourselves as better fathers, better husbands, better men, better leaders, better sons, better brothers, you name it. We've got to get real and lose the facade. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Before I go to Bishop Ray, I want to come back to you, Brother Earl. Let's say you're looking at me right now. This is how I, Errol Williams, am 95% of the time throughout my entire life in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Would you say this is a facade?
No. You're a beautiful man, Errol. You are very calm and you have a very close connection to your emotions. You're very good at expressing yourself. I would say the Errol Williams that we see on this broadcast is probably the Errol Williams that we would see on Sunday at church. It's the same Errol Williams we would probably see in the park, or if we were in a place of social connection with various people, we'd probably see the very same Errol Williams. But we don't see the Errol Williams which is pushed to his limit necessarily. We don't see the Errol Williams necessarily, which is the Errol Williams which, when hurt, when the Errol Williams which has been betrayed. We don't see the Errol Williams that has had a broken heart. If we saw that Errol Williams, we would probably go, wow, I didn't know he was feeling like that. I didn't realize he had that on his mind. I didn't know he was going through that. You have a beautiful way of putting yourself across. And I've known you for over 30 years now, Errol. And you know what? I would say the Errol Williams that I see here is quite genuine. But there are other people that you will see them and they will put on this beautiful arrangement on their face and you wouldn't know what's going on here in the heart. You wouldn't know. But the more you get into a relationship of trust, then the more you can see the real person coming out.
Yeah.
But you got to
very,
feel
very
safe.
good point. Very good point. Bishop Ray, yes. I think Brother Rob has asked some question as to where does this image comes from. It's a society, we say. What is this society? I mean, this is probably a very good point that says men don't cry, men this, whatever. How do you see that?
The first time I ever saw a man really cry was in church.
Okay.
Prior to that, I don't know if you can relate to this, Pastor Errol. Prior to that, on the streets, you just didn't do those kind of things.
No, you didn't know. You couldn't do it.
There was no way you couldn't do it. So when I came to church and I saw men crying, I have to tell you, it unnerved me because I had never seen that before. So even when I remember being on the street, I was never a street guy as such, but you mix with some guys, and then you had to stand your ground. You just couldn't back down. So the pressure comes from the environment that you're in. Let's put it in the context. The environment that you're in demands certain types of behavior, and therefore we were shaped by the group of men we mixed with, our environment, our home life, and being a black man. I have to say this. I'm sorry, but I have to say it. Being a black man. Well, you just you don't show any. I'm the Don. You have to walk the walk. You have to look good, and
explain the Don.
Even though you're in a lot of pain.
Explain the Don because most people don't understand what the Don mean.
Well, a lot of people don't know, but you're in charge. You're in charge. You're in control of the
You're the
situation.
leader.
You're nobody's going to. You're not phased by anything, and you can take on all comers. You're the don, and
Yes.
so therefore, you're in an environment where everybody's looking to take you down. Even sometimes some people that's near you, and you've got to stand your ground. You've got to show this belief in yourself that you're confident, you're unmovable, don't trouble me. And so therefore, um, coming up in that kind of setting, it hardens you. Coming into church now, seeing men being emotional, it phased me out completely. And I saw church as quite feminine, um, women taking the lead, and it just didn't appeal to me. I found it very hard to accept it. Slowly, by the grace of God, I did. I had strong men around me. I had guys like Silroy Verley, Errol Campbell. I had I had Bishop H.N. Johnson at the time, strong teacher. So I had some strong characters. But one of the complaints that a lot of guys say about church is that it's too women are in charge. They see it as quite feminine, and even down to the songs, love,
Yeah.
wrap me in your arm. Come on, a lot of guys can't accept that kind of thing. So it
Yes.
depends on what context you're in terms of
Yes. Yes.
how you respond. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I want to say something. One of the things that I know, I know God is real because I was able to say to my sons on a regular basis, guys, I love you. Now I never heard those words from my father. I never heard them. But when I look at my two sons and I said, I am honored to be your father. I am honored. I love you. I'll always be there for you. And that's as big as I am. That those are words that I hold dearly to my heart when it comes to my
Yes.
children and my family. That it's all right to say I love you. It's not a sign of
Excellent.
weakness.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Brother Rob, obviously, someone made a comment, I think, last week in the chat room. I can't remember, but I came across it. And I think the point was when we talk about men and their emotion, why is it that we are only focusing on crying? Are you with me? Because it seems as if when we talk about men and their emotion, it seems as if it's just about crying. Surely it's
Yeah,
about a lot more than that. Surely.
Yes, it is.
it is for me. But I think why crying is mentioned a lot because it's one good indicator of expression. It's an obvious
Yeah.
expression. Should I say that? And as you asked earlier about aren't we showing emotions now? Yes, we are. But
Mm.
I think humans seem to be attracted to the most dramatic type of things. If it's just normal, it's okay. I want to see a man bawl. I want to see his eyes watering, and that's what I want to see. I want to see a real man. But if a man's kind of sniveling, then that's okay. Yeah, man, that's okay. But that kind of thing. Yeah, crying is probably the number one kind of indicator. But then,
Mm.
yes, what are the other emotions men should?
Mm.
I'm going to use the word express because I feel that's the word for me. Men and the emotions is about expressing, and I think I said
Mm.
last week. For me, it's about the communication. It's how
Mm.
well do we communicate? Because
Yes. Yes.
everybody's different. I mean, I'm so
Mm.
confident being quiet. I love it.
Mm.
Where some people
Mm.
just want to be the center of the room, center stage, and
Mm.
everything. So not
Mm.
everybody, wants to be like that.
Mm.
So I'm married, and we're coming up to our 19th year on Tuesday.
Mm.
So we're still young in our marriage, and still working on it. And
Mm. Mm.
and so I say this because I'm quite quiet, and my wife is very, I wouldn't say loud, but very talkative and always wants to know what I'm doing. And I'm not the person who likes to share,
Yeah.
but for 19
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
that's what keeps it going, type of thing.
Mm.
And we're
Yeah.
still working on it. Do I show emotions? My wife would say probably not enough. Not even probably, she'll go definitely not enough, you know. And does my wife show emotions? Too much, So I think it's a balance for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's what makes the world go around,
Mm.
for me. So as I say, crying is not everything, but it's about identifying some of the emotions. Because I think for me, it's
Mm.
about mental health. For men, we store a lot of
Absolutely.
things,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and if you're
yes,
too quiet and you
yes,
don't release that,
yeah,
that's when it gets a bit
yes,
yeah, yeah,
harmful. I,
Mm.
I've
yes.
yeah.
learned to express myself, and also I now have a technique of speaking to men and trying to get them to open without them knowing. Because it's
Mm.
trust, as you said, Brother Errol, last week.
Mm.
People need to trust you before they can open up. And if I can,
Mm.
if I can open up about my emotions, my illnesses, and whatever my relationships, then hopefully
Mm.
they can trust me to speak to
Yeah.
and start to show and express other
Yeah.
emotions too.
Excellent. Brother Earl, you're a master
Yeah,
trainer. You train people all over the world, Microsoft, and so on. I've seen you in action, and you're certainly one of the best in the country. You're just a little bit better than me, so I'll give you that. But I wanted to ask you this question though. Surely
Uh,
there are women watching this program, probably more women
yeah.
than men. How can how can women get their men to talk? Surely you must have some techniques that you share with these companies to get employees to open up and to talk. How can they get us men to talk? Surely there are some techniques. Give me two or three.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to ask for permission to do a bit more than two or three, if you don't mind, Errol.
Go ahead, go
Because
ahead.
this is a big. I mean, first of all, we got to address what Rob said earlier. Where do we get this message that big boys don't cry? Where does that messaging come from? Where does it come from? Where pull yourself together? Are you a man or a
Mm,
mouse? Where does that come from? It actually
mm,
comes not just from society, but it comes from other men. It
mm,
Mm,
comes from other men,
mm. Appears.
particularly when the situation is one where they want to push you to go a little bit further, where they want to show, for instance, one of the times I used to hear it was when I used to want to come home from the dance and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Man, what happened to you, man? Stop on a little bit longer. What happened to you? Man armos, and it's other men who push you. And it's from the streets. It's where we grew up. Particularly if you look at the times that I was growing up, it was in the 70s. Racism was rife, and you had to stand up for yourself. You had to show yourself to be more than just
mm,
a boy. You had to grow up very quickly. And I got it from the youth clubs. I got it from the dances that I used to go to. I got it from the streets. It was
mm,
stereotyping. It was generalizations that you didn't want to fall below a certain standard. So that was the starting point. But
yes, yes.
more recently, we have the opportunity to be more open. Now, I'm going to answer your question now. How can we get our women to help our men open up? Well, there's an old book. It's very old now. It's called Men Are From Mars, Women
Mm,
Are From Venus.
mm,
It's a book by a guy called John Gray. And there's just one key principle in that book. It says when men are under strain, when they're under stress, when they're under pressure, they tend to go to the cave. What's the cave? Well, the cave is usually used to be behind a newspaper, but the men, they just want some private time. Just leave them alone where they can let their blood levels return to normal, and then they'll come out and they'll talk to you again.
mm,
Women, on
mm,
the other hand, how does a woman process her stress? A woman processes her stress by talking. They
mhm,
talk.
mhm,
They'll get on the phone to their daughters. They'll get on the phone to their moms. They'll talk to each other. They'll be constantly talking. And by talking, they gradually exercise themselves and get it out there. A guy doesn't do that. He internalizes whilst the woman externalizes. So if you look at the situation, let's say it's 6 o'clock, work has just finished, you're both coming home from work. Most wives have a second job when they get home. That's
mm,
to either look after the children or cook the meal. Now,
mm,
the
mm,
husband, he wants to retreat to the cave. The wife really wants to talk. So imagine now, wife and husband meet in the dining room. This is the ideal opportunity for an explosion. It's not the best time because man wants to be in the cave, bringing his pressure levels down. Woman wants to talk to bring her pressure levels down. It's two completely different coping strategies.
mm,
So if a woman wants the guy to open up, Leave him. Let him go on his run. Let him go and do the weights. Leave him. Let him read his paper for a while. Let him come out of the cave gradually and talk and be a part of the family. He's under stress. He don't want to talk to you right. So if you say, darling, how was your day at work today? Expect to hear caveman grunts coming back. Oh yeah, I was all right. How is your day, darling? Well, I'll tell you about it in a bit. Man won't talk very much when he's under pressure. He's internalizing it. I know I'm generalizing, but generally speaking, that's what we do. Now, if I could just have one more moment. More recently, in the last few years, we're seeing a lot more guys express themselves. Bishop Ray spoke about positive and negative energy and how you express yourself. Well, there's a great little Netflix movie on at the moment. It's a documentary about Michael Jordan. It's called The Last Dance. And it looks at the whole of what Jordan did in his career. And one of the things I notice is when Jordan was upset, he would take whatever a player said or did against him, and he would say, right, I'm going to use that energy. You shouldn't have, not spoken to me in the restaurant. I'm going to use that energy, which is building up inside me, and I'm going to show you in the next game. That's a way of positively expressing that negative energy that you got held inside you. And we should learn to do that a bit more regularly. I think if you watch The Last Dance, it is extremely emotional. Men do cry. Men do get hurt. Men even get hurt when they win. When they win, they cry. Watch a football match. When a goal goes in, why is it we all go crazy? We run around the football field and we don't want anybody to touch us. Don't touch me, don't touch me. And then, no, come on, embrace me. That's because we're emotional at that particular moment in time. That's how we express our emotion. When we do it in big, outlandish ways, and it's different. It's just different from the way women express themselves. So it's a matter of understanding where we're all coming from. We're not the same. We're not the same. We will express ourselves in a different.
Bishop Ray, I think it's clear to state that one of the biggest confusion in relationship is that us men don't understand the women and the women don't understand the men. Would you say that's a true statement? And if it is true, how can we better understand each other?
I'm praying that Jeanette is not watching this.
I'm sure she's somewhere.
I think we're coming up now to nearly 40 years of marriage.
Praise the Lord.
And it's safe to say that I still don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand. There's a lot of things that I'm discovering. And not only about Jeanette, but about myself. We talk different. I think it was Rob that was talking about, or Errol was talking about. I can't understand why my wife takes half a day to explain what can be done in 10 minutes.
Oh, yes.
So well,
I'm definitely hoping she's not watching.
I finished my point, and why are you carrying on? Why are you asking me these questions? I've just explained. And over the years, I've learned that that's our way of communication, and I've got to be more. Bev's looking at me. I've got to be more attentive to her, attentive to her way of communication. Because when I'm ready, I'll sit down and say, Jeanette, this is troubling me. She's my best friend when it comes to ministry. She's the only one I trust without reservation. And what I can't say to other ministers or people that I know, I can say to her to a point. And it's about understanding and growing with each other. So there is a need for us to learn from each other and start to accommodate each other's feelings. You can't be in a marriage or in a relationship and you don't think about, well, how am I coming across? How am I communicating? Why is this coming up over and over again? Let's deal with it.
Mm.
And sometimes as men, I think it was um, Earl that said we retreat into our caves because we don't really want
Mm.
to know. But sometimes when the wife speaks, there's a problem there, and then we have to admit we probably got it wrong, and we have to make some adjustments. So therefore, we don't want to hear it. So,
Mm.
but
Mm.
40 years of marriage, coming up to 40 years of marriage, has been it's a learning curve.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
it's a process of admitting where you're wrong, and even when you're right, guys, you're wrong. All right.
Mm.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's that's a fact of life, and even when you're right, trying to get that information across effectively, I
Mm.
struggle with that.
Mm.
I struggle with the
mm,
explaining things in detail, explaining things in a way that my wife receives it as it was intended. I still struggle with it. Yes, still I can go out, and I'll cut it short. I can go out and somebody says that was a wonderful counseling session, Pastor A. That
Mm.
was special. That was wow. I feel
mm,
better. I can see the light now. I can see the way forward. And sometimes in my relationship with my wife, I fail to do that. So we struggle in many areas to deal with our own environment. We are prepared to help each other, but sometimes when it comes to your home environment, we're struggling. Yeah. Um, a,
Mm.
a typical example is when I'll come home. I've been to a function. Who was there? Oh, people.
mm,
Well, who? Lots of people.
mm,
What did they say? Oh, they give a wonderful
Millionaire.
speech. They just,
mm,
why? It's not relevant. So, but we've got to learn to adjust to each
Yes.
other.
Yes. Absolutely.
I
And
need counseling.
yes, I
mm,
think, Brother Robert, I think that
mhm,
I've been to a lot of men's conferences, a lot,
yeah.
and one of the things that resonates a great deal is that men blame women as to why things are not happening. And one of the things I look at is how we men express love to our wives, because I think this is one of the
Oh,
things that we were, for example, in my days, we were trained not to let a woman know our feelings, whether we love them or
Mm,
not, just in case she walked away, she wouldn't know how
that's right.
hurt I was.
That's right. That's right.
Do you
That's right.
think this is a problem still today? And would you advise us men to show more emotion of love towards our wife, demonstration, not just words?
Mm. Um, I think you told me many years ago, Brother Errol, the word problem don't exist. It's a challenge.
An
So when you ask
opportunity,
me, if
opportunity,
it's a,
opportunity.
oh, an
Yes.
opportunity. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, challenge and opportunities. And so to answer that really, and Bishop Ray really, what came to me is that we as men are still work in progress,
Yeah.
and we on this forum are all married, but
Mm.
we also got to also remember those who are not married.
Yes. Very true.
And
Very true.
it's just that we're married, we're talking about our marital relationships,
Mm.
but what
Mm.
does that look like when we're single?
Mm.
Because those issues are still there, those challenges and opportunities are still there. They manifest differently, or we're not put into that situation to be tested, you know
Mm.
and so all these things about blaming women, showing emotions, because you will know, and many of us will see that when
Mm.
we have a men's forum, when it's just men, when I say just men and no women can hear, see, yeah, you'll see that men behave differently. I would say they open more,
Mm.
especially the elder ones, because they've been grown up not to show emotions and everything else,
Yes.
including
Yes.
to their partners. But in a closed room, you see a different side of the men. So for me, I don't see it as a problem, because I do believe men and women are different. So I said last week, one of my uncles, when I was much younger, said to me something which I carry with me, and it doesn't mean to make any offense to anyone, but he says men
Mm.
are built on logic and women on emotions. And hearing that, for
Mm.
me, it
Mm.
helped me to
Mm.
relate more to women, because there's some
Mm.
things I just don't understand why they even say or do or behave in the way they do.
Mm.
And
Mm.
because that's my logical brain, where, and it's not, doesn't mean that I'm right necessarily or that I'm wrong. It's just that
Mm.
women are wired differently. I could give you a whole host of different things that go on in this household. I can come from my men's perspective, and you will all nod your head and go, yeah, yeah, I see that too. And we heard some from Bishop Ray as well. So I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's about, when you're in a relationship, how do you make it work when you're both work in progress? God's got a sense of humor. And so every relationship's different, and as I say, I'm going to kind of steer my answer towards single men too, because, there's a lot of single men who may want to be in a relationship or who don't. And that's
Mm.
okay too, but so I'm encouraging men just to be confident, because my finishing point is, I think there's an inbuilt thing in men that it's about survival. Yeah,
Mm.
and it's a different
Mm.
type of survival depending on what you're doing. And Brother Errol, you said something about, the person you see, do you think I'm different? I think it's all about survival. And you will
Mm.
change depending on the situation, as long as you get what you want. And if you feel like you're attacked, you will change. There is a facade in
Mm.
everybody. We all do it. So some places we're confident, we've got the self-esteem and everything, we're in charge. And there's some places where
Mm.
we're not. And we have to put
Mm.
on a facade, smile it out, and then go somewhere and everything else. So to kind of conclude that, survival, facade, single, married, it's about learning, how to survive, but also learning how to relate to one another, not just our
Mm.
wives, but to women, men abroad.
Yeah,
Mm,
you made a very powerful point about logic versus emotion. I think you're absolutely correct. And
mm,
I think going back to the point Bishop Ray made, why spend the whole day telling me what you could tell me in 10 minutes? I've had a lot of that experiences myself, and I'm
mm,
sure a lot of men have said that
mm,
same. But Brother Earl, just on a final point before we go to Q&A, God says to Adam, what have you done? And he said, it's the woman that thou gavest me. So
That's
I
right.
notice ever since then we have been blaming women. Is it right to continue to blame them for everything that's going maybe not going right in the relationship? And if so,
Uh,
whatever. Why do we men do that? Why do we blame them?
it's a bigger picture than that. But
Okay.
you're right. I think the first example of not taking accountability was expressed when Adam and Eve were in the garden, and the
Mm,
serpent offered Eve that fruit, and Adam was there. Adam was there right next to Eve when she ate of the fruit, and Adam didn't speak up. Adam didn't
mm,
say, "No, Eve, you know what the rules are. Forget it. Don't do that. Put it down. Put it down, Eve. Put it down." She didn't put it down. She ate, and then she offered it to the man. And that's why
mm,
that was such a shameful and awful thing to do, because three things came into the world when that incident happened. Sin was recognized, they sinned. They were guilty, and they knew they were guilty because they immediately felt shamed. So if Adam had spoken up at that point, maybe he could have turned her around. And this kind of goes to where I'm going to go in my discussion now, in that we as men, we don't like to bare our heart. We don't like to expose our heart and our inner feelings to enable them to get hurt. We don't want anybody
mm,
to hurt that soft underbelly that we have. And so therefore we protect it and we keep it buried inside because we don't want it to get hurt. We don't want it to be interfered with.
mm,
And
mm,
if men would learn to speak up more and get more confident speaking their mind and opening up and making themselves more vulnerable, even at the risk of being hurt, then we could learn a lesson from that. Bishop Ray said it already. He expresses to his family and to his children, and he
mm,
says to his boys, "I love you." I've done the same thing. I've got in my car in COVID-19 situation during lockdown, and I've gone to my son's house and I've said, "I miss you. I want to hug you. I want to bring you in. I want to slap you up. I love you and I miss you." And I can say it more easily now, but if this was 20 years ago, would I do the same
mm,
thing? I doubt it, because it wasn't a done thing. Men don't do that. But now I've found enough courage and examples, and my life is getting to the point where, listen, if I don't do it now, then when am I going to do it? Life is not a rehearsal. And on the
mm,
other hand,
mm,
women, they love to express themselves. They need to express themselves. But sometimes, if women would maybe just listen a little bit more before launching the attack, maybe, then maybe we could get to a place of compromise in that middle ground. This isn't easy. I mean, we're learning all along, and I think forums like this, discussions like this, enable us to get to a point where we can be more reasonable with each other. I've noticed. I'm following the details on the chats, and I'm seeing some really cool points here. So I'm sure you're going to get around to some of them. But June McKenzie, I gotta say, I love this woman very much, and she just hits the point every time. She's given some credit here, and I know she's listening, and she's listened to many points
We'll
before.
come
But
to that now.
there's also
Yeah.
from Lloyd Ellington and so on. So I'll leave you to get on to some of those. But brilliant,
Yes.
brilliant.
Excellent.
Pastor Errol, before we go
Yes,
any
go ahead,
further,
Brother Ray. Yes.
one of the key points in our discussion is men, we need to admit when we're wrong,
Yes.
and when the women are better at doing certain things than we are. It empowers us when we say, honey, you're better than this at this than I am. And it is not a sign of weakness. Now, that took me a long time to learn, because going back to our previous experience, Pastor Errol, you can't say I was wrong. You just can't do that. But learn to say I was wrong. I am sorry. It's my fault. How do you think we're going to deal with it? And that, for me, I've learned that it is actually a sign of strength and empowerment, and it enriches your marriage and your relationship. There was a question before about crying. Why do we only talk about crying? Men show their emotions through anger, through frustration, being frustrated, being unable to. A lot of men would like to express themselves much more clearly, but because women are so good at twisting us up, and and my wife is excellent at it, and she can.
That's excellent.
And then I begin to doubt my own self. But
yeah.
the one thing that is important here is that we learn to trust each other, and we learn to empower each other. The moment one of us, whether it's the male or the female within the marriage, try to take authority by force, then you've lost it. It's finished. You've got to be able to complement each other. And this is not a competition to see who's the strongest. It's all about coming together as one flesh. And learning to live with each other with all our weaknesses and our strengths. It's not a competition. The moment you're gone into a competition, somebody's going to lose.
That's right.
Definitely. And I'm going to close on this one point. Notice that the sin did not enter into the race of man until Adam ate. So when the woman ate of the fruit, I think if Adam had said, no, I'm not doing it, I don't know what the consequences would have been, but it would not have entered in the race, to the human race. I remember teaching this at my local church, and the sisters they were empowered. They began to look at the men. See, I told you it was your fault. But and I also say this, I'm not taking up too much time, but I've got an issue where would church be if it wasn't for our women? I have a major problem with this. When we have our prayer meetings, when we have our Bible study, our men are not engaging. But and then we expect to lead. One of the young men that I was counseling, he said to me one time, I said, what is the relationship with your father? He said, Pastor, what you see in church is not what I have at home. And that was when I called the father to one side and talked to him, he broke down and cried because his father did the same thing to him. And it was just ongoing. So we need to unravel this, and this can't be done in this time, but over a period of time we need to unravel some of the things.
Absolutely. I like the thought actually that we're not here to compete against each other. We're here to complete each other. And so it's not about competition, it's about completing each other.
Mm.
Let's go over now I'm just gonna bring on the screen a comment, question from Gene over at YouTube. First of all, hi Pastor Errol. I cannot have I I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm reading it right. I cannot haven't got a young man who is my son. I currently maybe have a young man who's my son. He's quite shy and withdrawn from God. How can I support him to become closer to the church with respect? Uh, um, I didn't put it up on your screen. Let me show it to you. Did you hear what I've said? I think you probably got it.
Yeah.
On in the bubble, the son is shy. How can I get him to open up more or less? How can I support him to become closer to the church and with respect? Go ahead. Let's start with Rob. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Rob.
Yeah. So I think ultimately the goal is to bring him closer to church. That's Sister Jean, was it?
Yes.
Sister Jean's goal.
Jean, yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think before, that focus, that goal to bring him to church, closer to God, I think it's about gaining confidence within him first. So it starts within the home. For example, his family, his community, and then let church worry about itself. Because what is church? If you're talking about the place where you worship, that might not even be where the most natural place for him to open. And in some cases it can be detrimental if you're not careful on
Mm,
how that's handled. So for me, my advice would be, encourage your son of who he is. And I speak from, I say experience, because my youngest Ben is, very quiet, doesn't talk to half the family, my mom and dad, but my mom probably more than my dad, you know but through this lockdown, he is transformed. He's the loudest in the house. I was
okay.
talking before we got onto the show that the way he's playing football now, speaking, and it's just, so give it time,
Mm,
give it to the
mm,
Lord, pray to the Lord. I don't mean that,
mm.
cliche, but I wouldn't worry right now. And I don't know how old you say your son, but he sounds like he's young.
Didn't say.
But I would
Didn't
just
say.
encourage him. It just feels like he's
Yeah.
young. So I would just encourage him, that give him confidence, because a young man growing up with no confidence and no esteem, it's not just going to be church you're going to be worried about. It's going to be his whole career and his relationships and everything else. So
Perfect.
really, for me, I would encourage that there, and I'll stop there.
And I just want to add to that before maybe, I don't know if Brother Earl or Ray want to come in. I noticed with my son, I have one son, and if I spoke to him about anything, he didn't talk. But the moment I mentioned, listen to this carefully, the moment I mentioned Manchester United, that was
There
it.
you go.
Mm.
So
There
are
you
you
go.
talking to your son about what he wants to talk about? You see the point I'm
Yes.
making?
Mm,
Anybody else? I don't know if you want
mm.
to add to that.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I don't know
After
if
you,
any of
Ray.
you, yeah. I don't know if
No.
you want
No.
to add to that.
I'm
We could
fine.
go on to another question.
Oh,
I'm. I'm.
okay, if I
I'm.
could,
Hmm.
after you, Ray.
I'm totally in agreement
Okay.
with Rob, in so much that church is not the answer to this young man's whatever is troubling him, and I think a male influence, positive male influence as well, would need
Mm,
to be coming into it, and um, but he he might have hobbies like Manchester United, God forbid, but he might have some hobbies of some sort that
mm,
that would provoke a response. And I think sometimes
mm,
we spiritualize everything,
mm,
and
Yeah.
um, yeah, and that's far from the reality. Talk to him on a level that, well, Michael, whatever your name is, talk to him on a level that, what is
mm,
it that, how can I help you? What do you want to do? Because
mm,
by saying get him closer to the church, you're imposing your will upon him.
mm, mm,
Okay, but if he sees that you're looking after his well-being and you're saying, well, let's go, let's go and see. It might be martial arts, it might be boxing, it might be football, something that takes him
mm,
out of his normal environment and gets him interacting with other male. That's a
mm.
positive step.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
No, Yeah, if I could, Ray and Errol, one of the things I want to share with you is when I was young, we had exactly the same challenges in how do you get shy young men to want to come to church on a regular basis. One of the things that used to happen in the church I used to go to was the Church of England church. They used to have something called JUCOs, that was junior
Mm,
covenanters, and then later something called covenanters. Covenanters
I
had
went
a
to that.
principle where yes, well, it may have been the grounding for us to start going to church on a regular basis. Basically, it worked like this. On a Monday night, we would play games. We were schools that were in close areas. We would go to the church caddick room, it was called. It was a room where there was a hall, and we used to play football, table tennis. And in the summer, like with the light nights like we've got now, we used to go over to the park. But you were not allowed to play in the games unless you came to church on a Sunday morning. So, consequently, we had lots of people wanting to play football, table tennis, and all those great games, those great activities. And consequently, you had to show up on a Sunday morning, 10:15 through till 11:15, to be able to be eligible to play the sports. And that combination of activity and church in not but church study got people talking, and it got us engaged. And by the way, there was a female side to it as well, so we started to see the girls there, and it made us become friends, and it started a relationship. So what I would suggest is, if this young lady wants to get her son into church activities, that's the starting point. Don't look for just him putting him into church and expecting him to show up, because it probably won't happen for a very long time. Ray already said, and we know because all of us were there about 15 years ago when Robert Moran came over from the United States and told us that why guys hate going to church. It's a very female environment. We hold our hands up and we sing to King Jesus, and we hold hands and we embrace and we say how much we love each other. I'm sorry, but macho men don't necessarily like that approach. And one of the things that we can do, make church more guy friendly, basically. But for this young man, I think you've said it already. Somebody said Manchester United. For my son, what it was, when my son went to youth club, and there was a basketball ring at the youth club, and he started to get good at basketball. But whilst he was playing basketball, Brother Rob might talk to him about a couple of Bible passages. And over the years, he started to get closer and closer. Now, my son lives away now, but I tell you, when my heart sings, when I'm in church with my wife on a Sunday morning and we're in service, and about 12 o'clock, 12:15, my son walks into church of his own volition with nobody pushing him, ready for service. My heart just goes, wow, something went right along the way, because this boy got out of his bed, which he would much rather sleep till the late afternoon, but he chose to get up out of bed, put his clothes on, and come to church without somebody pushing him. That to me is a mark of great respect, and showing me that he's got a relationship with his Lord and Maker. But it comes from all the previous years of having the church put on activities, having people around that can associate with something to do with Christianity. It may not be the whole Bible with the sermon and the songs and so on. It could be music, it could be anything, but drip feed this lad as much as you can that he wants to receive. Give him as much as he can, whether it's a book, whether it's a video, whether it's just a table discussion whilst you're having dinner, because that's what we do with our girls as well. Whenever they're here, we have some very interesting discussions about church. And it's marvelous because it just gets us closer.
Amen.
To coming to.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I just wanted to. We got 15 minutes left. I'm not sure how much we can get in because there's a lot of comments. It really is a lot, and we're probably gonna have to find a way to get around to it. But this one here says, I like this one actually. This is probably one of my favorite, Brother Ray. So I don't know if you could tackle this one for me. And I'm asking this question with somebody else. My question is, how can men protect their emotions from being hurt? Is it possible?
Yeah. You can't.
Bishop Ray, you there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
I am.
got it.
Um, how can you protect yourself from being hurt? I'm not too sure you can. We're all going to experience disappointments in life. That's part of life. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be let down. You're going to be betrayed. That doesn't mean you can't be successful when you try again. It doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. So I've experienced hurts, disappointments, some major hurts in my life, but it's not held me back from striving forward. It's not determined my destination. And as men, we need to understand that, you know, like the women, like everybody else, we're going to be hurt, we're going to be let down, and you I don't think you can fully protect yourself from being hurt.
Okay.
And you just got to deal with it as best you can, and be honest with how you're feeling.
Yes.
You know, be honest with how you're feeling. Seek somebody that you can relate to, you can talk to, and I've got a couple of friends that I'm going through some stuff, and I'm able to sit with them and talk with them, and it's helping me to deal with some things that's recently happened. But you know, this Earl and his wife Bev has been a tremendous support. I know she's there, so I've got to say Bev. And it's it's nice to have somebody in your corner that you can talk to, and they will be honest. And men, let's accept the when somebody says, "Well, actually, you're wrong." We've got to accept that and listen carefully, because they're doing it for your good, and they're not trying to run you down. And you know, appease your men. We need to listen to other men and listen to females who are able to communicate on a level that we understand. So, in conclusion, I don't think you can protect your feelings. It's how you deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just Rob, it's not so much a question really, it's more a statement. I'm going to read it before I go over to Facebook. I wanted to give some time to Facebook.
Sorry,
And it's yes, go ahead.
3 weeks.
Yeah, the brother says, yeah,
the thought that's just
I only saw my father get emotional once when his father, my parent or grandfather, whom I never met, died. When my father died, I cried 3 weeks after his funeral when I returned to work. I think the point, Rob, is really that it's the same story, isn't it? For most of us men, we have never really, some of us never had a father in the first place, much less never saw a father showed any form of that kind of emotion. He was always strong and so on. This is a pattern
Yeah.
around the world, isn't it?
It is, and we started off, Bishop Ray started off talking about what society tells us, and that's kind of that's an example of what society tells us. You know, no one direct, and Brother Earl mentioned it about you can't be what you don't know. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, and so everybody, has got a different upbringing. That's why I kind of provoked and say, well, who told you that in society? And because everybody's got a different society when you grow up, and that determines. And it's not quite direct about emotions and stuff, but I was sharing with somebody because I do a lot of mentoring even now. That's my passion, especially as a black man. As I say, struggling, not like a Nelson Mandela struggle, but I struggled growing up, through education, through racism when I was in Wolverhampton and got that kind of early age. And I was sharing this with somebody who's running this mentoring scheme, and I said to him that I didn't get to know about university until I was about 19, and that's when I was in college doing a diploma. I didn't even know about diploma. I did one thing at a time. I left school with no grades, and this person said to me something like, "Shame on your parents." I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And he says, "Well, why haven't they told you?" I said, "Well, maybe they've got their own reasons. What did they know about?" And my point was, just because he had an upbringing where education, was spoken about, doesn't mean that every other family's got education. We've all come from a different, and we gotta embrace, where we come from, and not to feel ashamed or proud, and trying to relate it to what you just asked me, is that,
Yes.
it's okay that you didn't have people, around you, that's you, that's how you operate, but as I said earlier, it's about, we're all work in progress, so whether you're married, single, or whatever, it's how do you relate best, your
Mm,
character, you got to work on your own character.
mm,
So it's too easy to blame the wife or the other half or
mm,
somebody else. It's got to be
mm,
about you. You've heard what we
mm.
said tonight and the previous week. It's about how can you make yourself better. Just something Brother Ray talked about, admitting faults. I agree, but I've seen in the elder or the older relationships that doesn't quite work, because their culture, the men for
Mm,
40, 50 years has been and for them to say sorry now, it's almost like for their partner to go,
mm.
you see how you're stupid, you see how you're this, and you see how you're that. And so it gets, and so I hear you, but
Yes,
there's got to
yes,
be a balance to it, because there's some men now hearing that and going, I'm sorry, all they're going to get is beaten up, and
yes,
it's
yeah.
so it's about how do we get both of them,
Mm,
to when somebody says I'm sorry, forgive the person and let it go, rather than damage the person, because it's
mm.
trust, isn't it? I mean,
Yes,
if you
yes.
if you open yourself up and then they don't, and then
Mm,
you lose the trust, and then you don't show no more
yes.
emotions.
Excellent. Let me
Mm.
just, before I come to you, Earl, with this one, because we're gonna put up this is Facebook, and so I want to say welcome to June, and
Loads of women, isn't it?
loads of
Fantastic.
women. Yeah, so looking for the men over there, and Faye all the way from Jamaica.
Mm.
This season,
But the trouble,
Lance, your picture came up on my phone, remind me that this season is the season is live, our session is live. Oh, there is a man, Trevor Bailey. Amen, Rob.
oh yes,
So,
yeah,
and
bloody
Elaine,
Trevor.
June said, most men who have grown up in a broken home hardly show their emotion in relationships. They store a lot of things until they can build trust. That's an interesting point, brother.
That's right.
Take that on for me, brother. Earl. Again, we talked
Well,
about trust last week. Go ahead. Mhm.
yeah. It is that thing about trust, but be careful here because men will express themselves. But remember, right at the top of the call, I said sometimes men will put on a facade. They will put on a
Mm,
face. They'll put on an image. You know, I was in Jamaica once and I heard a man say, "Yo, brown skin girl, me love you, I'm to you. Ooh, come over here, girl, talk to me. You see me, ooh, me go to prison for you. You see me kill a man for you. Me kill a man for you. Now that's a lot of expression, right? That's a lot of expression.
Mm.
And you know what? Some women will go for that. But
yes,
is it the
yes,
true
yes.
person? Is it the true person? You know, if you go to the Caribbean, men are very expressive and they do
Mm,
it in that very loud and expressive way because they're still protecting the heart.
mm,
They're not giving you their real self. But if as a woman, you showed any kind of reaction positively towards that guy, he's going to come to you in 1,001 ways, which you probably wouldn't expect. It's again expression. It's once you get past the facade. Excuse me.
oh,
Whoa!
Emotions.
It wasn't the wife. It was me, right? It was me.
it
When
was you.
you get
Okay.
past that you get to a place where you can talk to a man face to face. And when you talk to a man face to face, it's a different person altogether. It's someone who you can get through to the real
Mm,
underbelly, the
mm,
real character.
mm,
Once you get through to that individual, it can be a beautiful thing because once a man and a woman start talking at that level, heart to heart,
mm.
a kind of warmth starts to develop. And
Yes.
I can tell you, I've been hurt before. And it's hard to get back into the saddle and want to give your heart to somebody else. But
Mm,
there is always hope. And I can say that because now I'm happily married. I have a wonderful wife, beautiful kids, but I had a second chance, and we serve a God of a second chance. So we should not be afraid to open up and be vulnerable again. Shouldn't be afraid
Mm.
of that.
Yes, I came down to Brother Lloyd puts up a video up here. In fact, actually, it's what actually happened in Wembley Church. We had a couples get together, and what happened was the leader showed a video clip. I'm gonna just go and show this clip for maybe 2 minutes. I don't know what part of it I'm going to go to. I'm just choose a part of the video and then just listen to it for maybe 2 minutes and I come back. I don't know. I'm just taking a guess. It's the same video that Brother Lloyd has relayed here. So I'm going to play it for 2 minutes and see what it says. Let's just see.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I'll eat worms and die. She didn't. She knew about this stuff. She just asked him again later. Hey, John. Yeah? Take me to the opera. No. John. Yeah? Take me to the opera. Okay. So now she's a happy girl. Now he's all dressed up like a penguin, taking her to the opera, and right there a lot of you girls would go, where's my stupid husband to take me to the opera? You guys such a... seriously, a lot of you girls, you envy other women's husbands because they're always doing things, but you don't understand. Women who get their husbands doing this stuff know exactly what I'm talking about. They do this all the time. You sit out with your heart broken because you won't do these things. You think he should just cosmically do them on his own. I mean... Somewhere in the rainbow. So he takes her to the opera, endures this mind-numbing experience. On the way home, she's holding his hand, just lit up. And he says, when we got home, I pulled into the garage. As soon as the garage door closed, she reached over and grabbed me and made love to me right in the car in the garage. I assume they weren't driving a subcompact. You figure it out. Anyway. So anyway, the next morning he gets up early and yeah, I was wondering, how much are season tickets to the opera?
Well, I wasn't. I certainly. I just.
That is
I just.
brilliant.
I don't know where I was going to go with that, but I just spoke any bit. But I would recommend as we come into a close in this. We've only got 3 minutes left. I would recommend every couple. I know, Brother Rob, you spoke about we are all married, but I would say to men who are gonna get married, watch that video. It's around three. It's 4 hours and 45 minutes, and it's called "A Tale of Two Brains." It really is a powerful. He's talking about the women's brain and the men's brain, how that they are so different. And one of the point that Lloyd made is that Gunnar spoke about the men have a box called the nothing box. You know, the place that he likes to go and hide away and be left alone, which is what Errol was talking about earlier. So I want to say that it's great for everyone to watch that video. I just want to give you guys one last minute. Errol, I think there's a way we're going to have to figure out how to, and Rob could help me with this, how to look at all the questions and comments of last week and this week around emotions and how we can respond to that and put that on the website. Does that make sense? And put these two videos up onto our website. So, for example, anybody who wants to go and watch it can go back and look at it, plus answer to questions that we have not been able to address tonight. Does that make sense? We might say, well, next week we can come back and look at the same subject or a different subject, because we talk about that in the week and see how we go. But I want to give you guys 1 minute each to just give your last, thought, 1 minute each. I'm gonna start with Bishop Ray, seeing as he started the show rolling. Just 1 minute each to say, you know, what's your last, what's your comment to men about their emotions? What's your last comment to us, men? To us, just I said us.
Okay.
I'm listening to, Ray. I'm listening to. Go ahead.
Okay. Don't be afraid to express yourself and admit to your weaknesses, and express when you're hurting, when something's upset you, but in a controlled and gentle way. And yeah, just be honest about how you're feeling at any given time. All of us need to continue to learn how to develop in those areas, and the quicker we do it, the better our lives will be. All right. By the way,
Excellent. Mhm.
by the way, um, we shouldn't seek to dominate our relationship. We should seek to honor each other and respect each other. There's no such thing as domination in a marriage. It doesn't work.
Excellent.
Mm,
That's powerful. Yes, I'm making my own personal notes. Rob,
mm.
you've
Yes,
been
yes.
here twice, and I'm so honored to have you. And as well, what's your last closing remarks?
Okay, so I think as we started, we talked about better husbands, fathers, and leaders.
Hmm.
Originally, it was better lovers as well. I remember when we had that in there as well. But it's
Hmm.
about leadership for me. So I probably want to end with men, single, married. It's about leadership, and leadership for me is about influence. How best to influence is to relate to the people around you. That's going to also mean you need to be honest with yourself and your emotions. A
Hmm.
leader who just shows this facade of I'm strong, works to a degree, but you'll find often people connect to you because they can see into your heart as well. So,
Hmm.
whether you're single or married, especially if you're married, it's vital because obviously you have somebody else you're living with. But, really just work on your character, be honest with yourself. People will see that through your body language and everything
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
Try and fix that rather than fix somebody else. Much easier. I always say you can't control someone else, but you can control your feelings and emotions. So really, with all that you've heard this week, last week, etc., it's about yourself. Single, married, it's about
Hmm.
leadership, influencing others. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show
Yes.
the other emotions, and just grow strength to strength.
Yes. Powerful stuff. Wonderful, brother Earl. Over to you, sir.
On this note, I have been hugely influenced by a book called The Seven Habits of Highly
Hmm.
Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And habit number 5 says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I think if a
Hmm.
lot of us, particularly as men, actually went out of our way to seek first to understand the people in our lives, our women, our wives, our daughters, our sons, our colleagues, our parents. Seek first to understand where they're coming from in the initial part of any conversation. Let them have psychological air first. Let them
Hmm.
talk first, express themselves, and then when you understand what has been said, then you give your response. So seek
Hmm.
first to understand, then to be understood. Always give the other person the opportunity to
Yes.
express themselves first. Don't take their time. You will find that not only will you give them the opportunity to express themselves, you will learn the discipline of
Hmm.
listening for where is the heart of their conversation. And then you'll be able to give a lot more of a reasoned response, a lot more of a wise response. It's a habit which I've lived with for many years, and it's really done me well. And I would pass that on as a little tip to just maybe practice this week.
Absolutely, gentlemen. I want to say it's been a beautiful evening, well spent, and I'm sure that there's a lot of comments that we need to respond to. And I wanted to say thank you guys so much, Bishop Ray. I hope you're okay, sir, with your wife, and that you won't be in any much trouble. But then again, Bishop, after 40 years of marriage, I'm sure she's probably cooking you a meal right now. You never know.
No, no.
No. Brother Rob, thank you very much again.
You're welcome.
The response has been
Mhm.
truly amazing, and the man I call the Incredible Erlin. Thank you again, and thank you all
Thank you.
very, very much. So I see you guys
Thank
soon. I
you.
would
Thank you
hope
for
in the week.
inviting me.
You're welcome, man. It's a
All right.
pleasure to have you guys. Take care.
Yes.
Wow, I must say, I am truly, truly taken aback by the discussion tonight. It's truly been amazing, truly amazing. I don't know what you think about it, but I'm truly, truly blessed, and I want to rehearse in a moment some of the thoughts which they left with us. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation. And one of the things I would strongly recommend with men is get into men's discussion like this. If they're not in your church, you need to form one. Get into a discussion like this, talk about things, and you'll be amazed that with sitting with someone like Bishop Ray, 40 years of marriage, and also Brother Earl and Brother Rob, who's been married a very long time as well, and who have big grown-up children, you'll be amazed at the things that you can actually learn from people who are in the same position as you are, who have greater experience than yourself. So I strongly recommend that you get into groups like that. That's a powerful thing to do. Just want to remind you of a few things. We will be back here every Friday, and I'm not sure how next week will go, whether we will still be on Men and Their Emotion. We need to talk about things like men's health and various other things like leadership and finances and so on. So we'll be looking at different topics. So we're going to create a space on our website so that, these two videos last week and this week can be there, plus these questions and comments. I'm going to be asking Brother Earl and Rob in particular to help us to addressing some of these questions and comments and put it on the website for you. And probably we could announce that next week where to find that. But do remember also that on Sunday evening, we do have Illuminate. This is hosted by Bishop Tedra M. Powell and his beautiful wife, Minister Alni Powell. And that's every Sunday evening. And I believe that's going to go on, at least until the end of this year anyway. So Sunday evening is definitely booked out already with this event. So put that in your diary, 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That's just an hour and a half. And it's been going pretty well so far. And the response has been truly, truly amazing. Just wanted to let you know what we are doing in Region 1 North and in the local church in Wembley. We have this set up times of prayer throughout the week and the Bible studies that you're part of here tonight. And Wednesday night is youth night, and Friday night is men's night. Thursday night is Errol Williams night. That's my night. I'm not giving that one away. That's my special night where I teach. But Monday and Tuesday, we will always bring in somebody else. So this Monday coming will be Bishop Mike Wilson, and Tuesday coming will be Dr. Antonia Christopher. So I have already got people lined up that will be coming in to teach us in various different subjects. So please watch out for that. All right. I just want to sum up and see if we can go on from there. Truly, tonight was truly spectacular for me. It was just truly, truly out of this world for me. And I'm just so glad that I was here to witness what I saw tonight in terms of what I heard. And truly, truly, God is truly amazing. So let me just now share with you what I heard these men saying in conclusion. And if you didn't make a note of it, you may want to make a note of it, because I'm making my notes, and one of the things I notice with men, we don't make much notes. And as a result of that, we lose out greatly. So here are my notes. Number 1, don't be afraid to express yourself. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated either to express yourself, with love and compassion and all of that. Secondly, don't seek to dominate the relationship, but honor the relationship and honor each other. Don't seek to dominate. You don't have to. I'm the man of the house. You don't have to say that. The fact that you've said it is an indication that there's probably some challenges that you're facing. So it's not about domination, as I mentioned tonight. It's not about competition, Bishop Ray said. It's about completing each other, not competing against each other, but completing each other. And so don't seek to dominate the relationship, but seek to honor it. And that is a powerful, powerful point. That's a comment for Bishop Ray's book, the book. I'm hoping Bishop Ray's writing his book. Actually, I didn't ask him. Rob talks about leadership and influence and about relationship. What a powerful thing. This is one of my, we're talking about better men, better fathers, better leaders. And we probably need to put back that word in. Brother Rob said tonight, better lovers. I think we probably can put that back in. So it was there before, as he made mention. So it's about leadership. Leadership is influence. And remember this man, Dr. John Maxwell says this, and I do agree with the statement. He said, everything rises and falls on leadership. And if you see yourself as the leader within the relationship, within your home, then everything rises and falls on your leadership. So if things are not going right, it's your leadership. Are you really good at influencing? Are you good at leading your family in such a way that things work out the way you'd like it to be? I love the point, no facade. When I think of no facade, I always think about American football, right? When they're actually, in this padded up, suit, as it were, to go and play football. And sometimes when they take it all off, it's a smaller man that was on the inside. So as men, we need to take the facade off. Okay, but let me say this also. Let me say this. Some people think Errol Williams, I'm wearing a facade. And some people might say to me, he's so arrogant. No, it's not arrogance. It's confidence. It's confidence in the God I serve. It's not arrogance. It's just confidence. I take God at his word, literally. I take God as his word. God said it. For example, God said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, Hebrews 13, verse 5. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's true. And he will never leave me nor forsake me. That means he's with me. So if he's with me, who am I to fear? Who am I to worry myself about? A question was asked tonight about how do you maintain not getting hurt? Well, I would give you a scripture for that. And that's Psalms 119, verse 165. Great peace have they that love thy law. And listen to what the verse says. And nothing shall offend them. The word offend means to hurt. And nothing shall offend them. So there is a place that we can get in God, that we are secured. And when you're in that place, you will know. Be honest. I love this point. Fix yourself. That's what I have been trying my best to do. It's not fixing my wife. It's not fixing my friends or even fixing the church. No, fix myself. My job is to preach the word of God. My job is not to fix you. My job is not to fix the people in the church. I do not see that as my responsibility. I see my responsibility as fixing myself, preaching God's word. It's up to you to fix yourself. And God has given us his word to do that. So fix yourself. I love this. It's okay to cry. It's okay. It's okay not to cry. I don't have to show tears for me to be a real man. A real man doesn't mean that you have to cry. It's Errol Williams talking now. A real man doesn't mean that you're crying, and a real man doesn't mean you don't cry. You can cry if that's what you want to do, cry. But just because I don't cry doesn't mean I'm not a real man. It's interesting that when my mother passed away, my sister cried. Now, I never cried like my sister. I never cried like nobody else. I did not cry. In fact, when I went to the hospital, and while she was on this mask with, breathing, I knew she was dying. And I was in the hospital room with her. And while I was in there, I knew this is probably the last time I see her alive. She can see me. No, she couldn't see me because she was like in a coma state position, but probably she could hear me. And I remember speaking to her. I was alone with her. And I remember a little tear came into my eye, a little tear. And I was very pleased about that. And that was it. That was the extent. And this is what, nearly 15, 20 years ago. And I heard people say, well, you're bottling up your emotion. Who told you that? Who told you that I was bottling up my emotions? Who told you that? Did the scripture tell you that? Or is that something you heard the psychologist say? Are you with me? So I don't buy that. But I love the closing point that Errol spoke about. And this is a very good book, actually. You want to get a hold of it if you can. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And point number 5, Earl mentioned, was about seek first to understand other people before you try to get other people to understand you. If you're a man in a relationship and we're talking to you, seek first to understand your wife. Seek first to understand her before you try to get her to understand you. I did ask a question to Earl earlier about how can women get our men to talk. One thing I would say is this, women, ask us open-ended questions, gently, not forcefully, not with any kind of intimidation or whatever. Just be wise. Ask open-ended question like, how was your day? And if he say, well, fine, that's just fair enough. Prepare another open-ended question. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling? Ask open-ended questions, not closed questions. Closed questions give you a yes or no answer, 1 or 2. You with me? What's your name? Errol. Well, that's a closed question. Master the ability of asking open-ended question, and you might actually find you might open your husband so much or so on that he may not want to stop talking. I go downstairs and I will be going downstairs shortly, and I would say I go down and my wife would say, well, how was the show? And I would say, man, it was fantastic. And I may stop there. And she might ask me, what was it about? Are you with me? And then I would give her a little bit more information and so on. So be wise in how you deal with it and so on. I must say I learned a lot tonight. I'm also reminded about a lot of things. And it's always good. I love to be in groups where we can talk as men, because it causes me to, to judge what I'm doing at the moment. Is that right? Am I doing it well, better? And when Bishop Ray talked about 40 years of experience, it reminded me of something I want to close on. It reminded me of a time when Bishop Mike Wilson organized a parents' evening in church. And this was held at Bishop Foreman's home. I'm closing now. And he asked all parents with teenagers to come to the meeting. Now, I had 2 teenage daughters at the time, Samantha and Pepsi. They were both teenagers. At one stage, I had 4 teenagers in my home. They were all girls, and they were all teenagers within the space at the same time. I think I'm right about that. It was either 3 or 2. But on this occasion, I went to this meeting, and all the parents spoke about their experience with their teenagers, and I learned nothing from it, because all that they spoke about, I had experienced and was going through. So I had nothing to learn from that until Bishop Pullman spoke. Until he spoke. You see, all his children had flown the nest. They were no longer teenagers. They had all gone out away from being a teenager. And when he spoke of his experience, my goodness, my whole world changed. My whole eyes opened up. What am I saying? There are some people out there who have a wealth of experience that you need to tap into. We talk about Bishop Ray, we talk about Earl, we talk about Rob. These are men with experience. There are other people maybe in your local church that you might see, as if they're a nobody. I strongly recommend strike up some conversation with them. Go visiting them and ask them, I noticed you've been married for 60 years and you've got 5 children. How did you do it? And sit and listen to me carefully. Piece of advice when you do that. When you're in the presence of greatness, do not talk. Ask questions. Let me say it again. Let me get my mic closer so I could change so you can hear me loud and clear. When you're in the presence of greatness, do not talk. Ask questions. Don't tell them about who you are, what you have achieved, what you have done, what you're planning to do. Ask questions. And always remember this: the quality of your learning will be determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. Let me say this again. The quality of your learning will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask. When I'm in the presence of Bishop T.F. Pullman, you think I talk? I ask questions. I want to find out, sir, how did you do this? What happened when you did that? Talk to me, Bishop. I want to hear you. I don't go and tell him how many books I've written and how great I am at this and that. I want to learn from you. When I'm with Bishop Ted Roy Powell, I want to learn something. I want to know something. So I hope that helps. I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to have you. Thank you so much, those of you from YouTube and Facebook who have joined us. Thank you. And those of you that's watching this recording, thank you so also. And if you want to support this particular ministry, you can do so. If you have Facebook, the information is probably just above your head. If you're on YouTube, it's probably down below. And you can support this ministry. And we just ask that you do so prayerfully. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking to see if I could find a video to play. And maybe I will just play the one I was just playing and probably start it at the beginning somewhere. This is Mark Gunner, an amazing guy, I must admit, an amazing guy. And it's worth listening to him. So take care of yourself. I will just play around 10 or 15 minutes of it, and then I will stop. So take care of yourself. Until next time. Bye for now.
Hello, and welcome to Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. I'm so glad you're here. This is the marriage seminar for people who hate marriage seminars. Hoo-ah! All right? I get a kick out of watching the couples when they first come in on Friday nights. You know, the girls, they're all lit up, you know, just, ooh, I got him here, you know. and the guy's going, oh man, I can't believe, you know, I got here. But it's cool, guys. You can relax. You're going to love it. This is not one of those let's beat up on the men for not being women seminars. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And what is it with that anyway? Man, you know, you ask a lot of women to describe their ideal man, and they'll describe another woman. What's up with that? You know? So we're not going to do that. We are going to just go with this thing in a normal, healthy way. We're men. Men are men. We're not sick. We're not perverted. We're not twisted. You know, we're not broken. We're men. All right? And God, yeah, hoo-ah. And God made us the way we are for a reason. And I'm going to show you girls what that reason is. Okay? And I'm going to try and explain to you the world of men a little bit through this thing. We'll also discuss the women's side of things as well. But I really want you to understand this men thing. Women are much more complicated than men. Men are very simple. Simple. S-E-X. Simple. All right? So... That's what I'm talking about, okay? So we're going to have fun. We should have a really, really great time. Now, tonight we're going to do a session called The Tale of Two Brains, hence the two brains. And we're going to be discussing how men and women think very differently from each other. Why is that important? Because men and women are very quick to make into heart problems what are essentially head problems. A woman acts a certain way, a guy feels she doesn't care about him, he says, well, there's something wrong with your heart, you don't care about me. No, it's the way she processes information. The same with a guy. A man thinks in a certain way, and a woman thinks there's something wrong with his heart. No, it's his head. okay? So I'm going to try and explain to you what that's all about. Then tomorrow morning we're going to do a session called Why Does He Do That? Why does she do that? Okay? See, it's one thing to understand men and women in general. It's another one to understand the one you got stuck with. Okay? So I'm going to show you how you can discover specifically what makes your spouse tick. And it's powerful information that will absolutely revolutionize your relationship. All right, then we're going to do what I call the Yo Mama session. And it's called the #1 key to incredible sex. And boys, if you miss that, there's just something wrong with you, okay? So you gotta check it. And then we're gonna end with how to stay married and not kill anybody, okay? All very deep emotional stuff. Now, now a lot of people say, well, what's your background? What's your deal? Well, my background is that I'm a minister. Now, if you're not much of a churchgoer, don't let that make you nervous. Some of my biggest fans are heathens. All right? And this isn't one of those things where we sneak you in and then beat you over the head with a Bible. All right? But I do have a Bible verse I need to show you, okay? Because I found a Bible verse that if you followed the advice from this one Bible verse, you will never, ever, ever have a problem in marriage. How many think that's worth seeing? All right? You follow the advice from this one verse, you'll never have a problem in marriage. It says it's good for a man not to marry. All right? So, well, now why would he say that? That's such a terrible thing to say. Because he goes on to explain, he who marries will have trouble in this life. You know, people come up to me, Pastor Mark, something's wrong. I say, what is it? We got trouble in our marriage. I go, no, that's about right. There ain't nothing wrong. That's pretty normal. Now, you don't hear these verses read at weddings very often. Kind of downplay that. You know. You don't see those on Hallmark cards. You don't see them on cakes with pretty calligraphy. He who marries will have trouble, but it's too late for you. You know, you say, if that's the case, then why get married? Because marriage is absolutely wonderful. It's great. It's fantastic. But it's not that it's without trouble. All right? And I want to show one other verse to you. Now, you don't have the deep theological training that I have, so you might have a hard time understanding this verse. But I'll try and explain it to you. This is found in Proverbs. And it goes like this. Where no oxen are, the manger is clean. Let me explain that to you, okay? What does that mean? What it means, if you're going to have an ox, you're going to have ox poo, all right? Now, if you don't like poo, and most of us are not real big fans of poo, if you don't like poo, the temptation is get rid of the ox. Preach it, brother. No. I don't want you to get rid of the ox, all right? You know? So, well, why would you keep the ox around? Because he goes to the second half of the verse, it says, because much increase comes by the strength of the ox. Well, now there's the catch-22. On the one hand, we all love the benefit of the ox, but nobody likes the poo. And what he's trying to tell us here is you cannot have one without the other. There is no such thing as a poo-free marriage. It just doesn't exist. Unless you shoot the ox, okay? But that leads to other problems. So this weekend is not about attaining a state of perfection in your life, all right? It's about getting a proper positive to poo ratio in your life. You see, because if all you get is poo, then you got one sick ox. Are you hearing me? All right? So, but there's no such thing as a poo-free marriage. For those of you having a hard time grasping this, I have a mathematical version of it. It goes, ox equals poo over positive. Some say positive over poo. But anyway, it's the ratio that we want to get going here, okay? Now, marriage is a wonderful institution. Statistically speaking, we know that married people are healthier than single people. They are actually happier than single people, assuming you're doing this right. Or you can be profoundly unhappy. They actually make more money than single people, and I'll mention a little bit later why that's true. Okay? They have better sex than single people. Now, you don't see that in our culture, you know, in all the movies and shows, you know, it's the single people all having really great sex, you know, and the married people are, you know, someone will say, well, how's your sex life? Are you kidding? I'm married. And it's not true. It's a bunch of baloney. Okay? Married people have great sex compared to single people. Single people don't even know what they're doing, for crying out loud. Okay? And statistically speaking, married people live longer than single people. This is particularly true for men. Statistically speaking, one of the most dangerous things a man can do in America today is remain single. It is the equivalent of smoking 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day. It's true. They found that if you take someone who has 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day and the health problems and the shortness of life and all his difficulties, and a single guy is pretty much the same. I guess the worst would be a single guy who smokes 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day. All right? But marriage is wonderful. It's great. It rocks. I love it. Okay? If you do it right. Now, the problem here is so many people don't do it right. And it's not that they don't know, not that they don't want to do it, they don't know what to do. We live in a culture today that seems for somehow in the relationship area to be completely clueless. We seriously don't know what to do. Now this weekend what I want to do is show you specific things you can do that will absolutely energize and transform your marriage life. How many think that's worth hearing? Yeah, okay? So, now, I want to talk to you about what I call the laws of relational physics. You see, the laws of physics affect everybody, whether you believe them or not. Okay? If I step off this stage, I'm probably, in all likelihood, going to go down. If I start floating around, you might want to freak out and run. But why? Because the laws of physics affect. Well, I don't believe that. It doesn't matter what I believe. I'm going down. Right? Doesn't matter if I'm a born-again Christian. Doesn't matter if I'm a heathen. Man, I'm going, because it affects everybody. Well, just like that, there are laws of relational physics, and they affect everybody, whether you believe them or not. Now, this might come as a little bit of a shock to those of you who are church people, especially hearing from a minister. But the truth is, you don't have to be a Christian to have a great marriage. I know a lot of heathens that have wonderful marriages. I know a lot of born-again Christians who have horrible marriages. Why is that? They're breaking all the rules. And they assume somehow that the rules don't apply to them, but they do. Here's an example. If you're driving a car 80 miles an hour around a curve that says only 40, and you keep going 80, chances are you're going to get hurt, even if you're listening to a Christian radio station. Even if you have a statue of Jesus on the, you know, he might be going, you know, but why is that? Because the laws of physics still affect you, but for some miracle, you're going to get hurt. Same true with relational physics. And I want to explain that to you, and we'll take a look at that. Now, this weekend, I'm going to be speaking to you in basic stereotypes. In other words, women generally tend to be a certain way. Men generally tend to be a certain way. But they're not all that way. I get it. Okay? Some of the people that just have a cow. Well, I don't know. That's you for all men. I'm admitting it's not, all right? Just generally speaking, we don't have time to get into all the shades of gray. But generally speaking, men are a certain way, women are a certain way. If I start describing something that's not you, don't have a cow, just interpolate for your relationships. In Debbie's and I relationship, there are areas where we're completely opposite of a typical man and a woman. I remember when I was first studying this stuff, I thought, oh man, I'm a woman. So just interpolate. I will say this, that if you tend to be one way in a certain relationship, your wife generally will be the other way. I don't think I've run across a couple yet. I'm sure they're out there that act the exact same way. You know, so if you break the rules, chances are your spouse is breaking them right with you, and you just flip on this deal. Okay? For example, a typical stereotype: men are more interested in sex than their wives. Why would you say that? Because generally it's true. But it's not always true. There are a lot of relationships where the wife is much more interested in sex than her husband. If you're here tonight and your wife is much more interested in sex than you are, I think I speak for all the men here when I say that we hate you. Please don't tell us who you are. We will hurt you, all right? So just go with the flow. It'll be cool. We'll have a great time discussing this thing about marriage. Now, I believe marriage is a life-giving institution. We live in a culture today that believes marriage is a life-sucking institution. It will suck the life out of you. All right? And that's why we say, make sure you're old enough. Make sure you have enough money. Make sure you have enough education. Make sure you've been dating for 37 years first. Make sure that, get all the stuff. Why? You got to get everything together and ready so that when you say I do, you can withstand the, But it's not that way. It'll give you life if you'll do it right. If you do this right, marriage can be the closest thing to heaven on earth. If you do it wrong, well, you fill in the blanks. Okay, so now, we're going to start discussing men's brains, women's brains, and how they're very different from each other. Now, I want to start with men's brains. All right, now men's brains are very unique. Men's brains are made up of little boxes. And we have a box for everything. We've got a box for the car. We've got a box for the money. We've got a box for the job. We've got a box for you. We've got a box for the kids. We've got a box for your mother somewhere in the basement. We got boxes everywhere. And the rule is, the boxes don't touch. When a man discusses a particular subject, we go to that particular box, we pull that box out, we open the box, we discuss only what is in that box. All right? And then we close the box and put it away, being very, very careful not to touch any other boxes. Sorry, my Catholic upbringing got in there for a minute, but I'm not a Catholic, but I went to Catholic school when I was little. I had a nun who taught on hell like she was born and raised there. I mean, I'll never forget it, but it did me good, actually. It was a good thing. Now, women's brains are very, very different from men's brains. Women's brains are made up of a big ball of wire. And everything is connected to everything. The money's connected to the car, and the car's connected to your job, and your kids are connected to your mother, and everything's connected to everything. And it's like... It's like the internet superhighway, okay? And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's one of the reasons why women tend to remember everything. Because if you take an event and you connect it to an emotion, it burns in your memory and you can remember it forever. The same thing happens for men. It just doesn't happen very often because, quite frankly, we don't care. Women tend to care about everything. And she just loves it. Okay? Now, men, we have a box in our brain that most women are not aware of. This particular box has nothing in it. It's true. It's true. In fact, we call it the nothing box. And of all the boxes a man has in his brain, the nothing box is our favorite box. If a man has a chance, he'll go to his nothing box every time. That's why a man can do something seemingly completely brain dead for hours on end. You know, like fishing. And we love it. That's why a guy can sit in front of a TV and go. It glows. Of course, this drives our wives nuts because they'll come up and say, "Stop that! You can't possibly be watching anything!" I'm not. Go away. Now, they've actually measured this. The University of Pennsylvania a couple of years ago did a study and discovered that men have the ability to think about absolutely nothing and still breathe. You know, they connected all the wires and stuff like that and watched the brain activity, then all of a sudden, I think he's dead. Huh? You know, women can't do it. They can't do it. Their minds never stop. And they don't understand the nothing box. And it drives them crazy. Because nothing drives a woman more crazy or makes her feel more irritated than to witness a man doing nothing. Now, one of the biggest revelations I get out of women is this whole nothing box issue. They just, everything's starting to make sense. And I've had women say, oh, it's nothing. Well, can I go in his nothing box with him? No! Why not? Because then it's something. Besides, you'll walk in there and go, You know, this place could really use some pictures. Nice little table over here, some flowers. Is it? No! Nothing! Get out! We don't want nothing. Now, this handles the way men and women handle stress. Okay? When a man is stressed out, all he wants to do is run to his nothing box. This is how we unwind. The last thing we want to do when we're stressed out is talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. We just want to. Of course, it just drives her nuts, you know. A woman will see a man in that vegetative state and she'll come up and go, "What you thinking about?" Nothing. We gotta be thinking about something. No, I was thinking about nothing. In fact, I was on a roll till you showed up. Go away, all right? Because that's how he handles stress. He just. Now, when a woman is stressed out, she has to talk about it. If she doesn't talk about it, her brain will literally explode. So she'll start just, I don't know, might have something to do with this. No, could have to do that. I never thought about this. My brother over here said to me, and I know men who run from their wives when they do this. They do. I say, well, why do you run from her? He says, because I don't know what to tell her. I said, dear God, man, who told you to tell her anything? She wants you to tell her anything. See, a lot of guys, they feel obligated when you start explaining all your stress, they feel obligated to fix you. Right? Because that's what a man does. A man only tells his troubles to another man in hopes that that man will help fix it. Okay? But she's not a man. And you try and fix her, she's gonna kill you. All right? She doesn't want your advice. She doesn't want your help. She wants you to shut up and listen. And a couple of ladies, that's right, you tell him. Tell him to shut up. They like that. Now, I had one guy tell me, he said, man, if she just tell me how she feels. I said, she doesn't know yet. He said, what do you mean? So that's how she figures out how she feels, by connecting this wire to that wire, this wire, and so. Now, because they love each other, they offer to each other their answer, their solution. A man senses his wife is stressed out. He loves the girl. He offers to the girl his best and finest solution. Or just quit talking about it. Just quit thinking about it. Yeah. And that's when she starts reaching for the knives and stuff. She's going to stab you if you keep it up, okay? Now, a woman, she senses her husband's all stressed out. She loves him. Therefore, she offers to him her best and finest solution.